All right, everyone, here we are with the final exam. I don't know about y'all, but this semester has really flown by for me. Hopefully, this won't take too long. It's a pretty straightforward assignment. Basically, we're going to be taking our diagnostic essay, our first paper. Remember that we did basically in the first week of class, and we're going to turn that into an argument. Um, we thinking back, we completed that diagnostic essay without using all the skills, without even learning all the skills that we've practiced all semester from summary and strong or critical response or speaking back to analysis, especially rhetorical analysis, whether visuals or texts. Um, then we moved on and we did a little bit with some synthesis. And argumentation and persuasion. And I'm just wanting you to go back, take a look at your diagnostic essay again, pull it up, and see if you could make an argument about it. Rewrite it. This is not an exercise in simply editing it or anything like that. To use an example, many of you wrote about, let's say, 2 pages or 3 pages. And a lot of it was reflection and reflective writing, which is excellent, which is great. So now I want you to take that, take the essence of it, your main point, your main area of focus. Um, how can you re-see it? How can you see it anew through a lens that this class has hopefully provided you? How can you see that piece of writing that you did in the beginning with all these new skills and practice that you've had? That's what I'm asking you to exercise here in this final exam. Um, we're gonna, I want you to write this like you would any of our other major papers so far. Um, I'm not going to rehash it all here because hopefully by now you're familiar enough with it, at least to where you could go back and refresh some ideas with our course materials, previous lectures, those kinds of things. But I want to see things like introductions. I want to see body paragraphs, whether you're going to be analyzing or, critically or strongly responding to ideas. This is not a research paper. We'll talk about that more in a minute. I'm not expecting you to go out and find sources or anything. You can if you want to, but in fact, I might even discourage it a little bit. This is not meant for that. But sometimes if you feel like pointing or gesturing to a source or two might help make your argument, then please feel free. Um, this final exam essay is going to do all the stuff that we've been doing, all right? But here I want to illuminate a couple of points here that I think I don't want to get lost in all of this. I want you to be able to compose a thesis statement, an arguable claim. You might think about starting this sentence that oftentimes comes at the end of our introduction. You might start by saying, I argue that, or my argument is. All right. That will ensure that you're making a clear, well, at least clear. I'm not about focused yet, but you'll be trying to make an argument anyway. Um, Here's a bunch of different ways you might think about your diagnostic exam and the things that you wrote about. What the experience revealed about how people learn. You take your experience, sort of reflect that off what you think you know about people in general and make an argument about it. Some of you, for example, wrote about things like the challenges posed by procrastination. Um, well, take what you think you've learned about yourself and everything since then about procrastination. You say, I argue that, people who suffer from the effects of procrastination blank, turn your turn that diagnostic exam, turn the ideas therein into an argument. what it taught you about persistence or decision making. Again, that experience you wrote about in your diagnostic, your first paper. Um, how certain obstacles shape your identities as learners. And I would even add in here how obstacles in education or in learning not only shape people's identities as learners, but as people. It's not very easy to separate these things out. Talk about that, argue about that, um, or why a particular response to struggle matters. In other words, how we respond to adversity and overcoming adversity. Does one way versus another matter more? Does it make a difference? Here you can get into the things that you've experienced personally. You can talk about what you've learned about how others deal with matters of adversity and struggle. But again, we're thinking about this in terms of argument, not only in your thesis statement. Try not to think of it as that's the only place where you're going to mention my argument or I argue that. Use this kind of language. Use this throughout your paper. Make your argument clear and remind your reader of it frequently. All right. Um, Here I want you to recall some of the argumentative strategies and just composition strategies in general that we've practiced extensively this semester. I won't read over all of these, but these are just um, the things that I mentioned at the outset here. I don't try not to think of this final exam as just a long reflection piece. Yes, it's going to be partly reflective, but I still want you to incorporate in and rework in a lot of the academic writing that we've practiced and learned all semester. Again, you're going to be composing an argument. So you'll want to use some of these features and structures. They're going to be very helpful for crafting an argument in addition to your reflections, not in place of reflections, but in addition to, as a complement. Once again, when I mention things here like synthesis, automatically your mind may go to, well, that sounds a lot like, source material. And it could, and it might, if you choose to. But you can just you can synthesize thoughts, you can synthesize experiences. It doesn't have to be just sources. You're taking information that you pull from other places, from what you already may know or have experienced, for example. You could synthesize your experience prior to this class and now here almost after the class. You can synthesize your own experience compared to other students, classmates, family members. So try not to think of this or even, rhetorical analysis. That also might, you're thinking of source material, not necessarily. You could think about, the rhetoric that you've employed in your writing throughout the semester. You can think about the rhetoric that people use when describing overcoming adversity that you've picked up on since starting this class. There are other ways to think about each of these strategies and approaches to writing that do not necessarily rely on source material, but you can if you want to. I'm just not requiring it, not even really encouraging it, right? I'm going to be looking for lots of development and lots of elaboration. What I don't want to see is a two-page diagnostic exam, and then you come back as your final exam and you have 2 pages and one paragraph. I want to see extensive development. Here are a number of ways, not the only ways. These are just a number of ways of thinking about some of the things that you can do, going deeper into why the challenge that you faced and overcome matters or mattered, especially now at the end of our class. That can require a lot of writing, all right? And that's what I'm going to be looking for. New insights or complexity to your own thinking and understanding. Of course, there's no right or wrong way of doing any of this. I'm giving you ideas. I'm giving you prompts that you can take in whatever direction you see fit. Again, for the sake of crafting an argument out of your diagnostic essay. And then maybe some more practical, sort of mechanical considerations. You know, if you wrote your diagnostic exam or essay way back in the beginning of the semester without any kind of form or structure, I'm going to be looking for you to organize your final exam according to MLA or APA format or style. I'm going to be looking for improved technique in composing things like sentences and paragraphs. And just overall in the choices that you make in terms of revision, I'm going to be looking a lot of that. So um, try not to think of this final exam as just you ta attaching a couple more sentences to what you've already written. That you are not going to perform very well if you make that decision. Um, Transform it here. I have it will transform it. Um, Retaining the core experience, but making new meaning from it, using the skills that you've practiced all semester. So I hope you get that. I'm pretty much saying the same thing over and over again. I want you to take your core diagnostic essay experience and transform it into an argument using the skills that we've been practicing all semester. After you get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm done. Before you submit it, I want you to include a little paragraph at the end. This is a little note, a little author's note. I want you to briefly sort of list and discuss the major revisions that you made, not every little single thing, but as you see it, as you understand your own writing and your own reworking of your first paper, what are the major things that you really did? Um, what what do you feel like were the things specifically from our class that helped you rework or redo or revise your first essay into this final exam? And then talk about, how they factored in and what do you, if you feel like, for example, critical and strong response factored into your final exam rework of your first paper, why did that matter so much? What did you take from it? What did you get from it? What did critical and strong response allow you to do in this final exam that maybe you didn't know about prior? Or, do that sort of same thinking with whatever it is you feel like helped you with this final exam. Um, and how you see your writing has grown and developed since that first diagnostic essay. This is just you looking at yourself, looking at your own writing. How have you developed and grown as a writer and as a person? I'd be interested to see that too. So here we go. No fewer than 2 full pages, really, because that was sort of the bare minimum for the diagnostic essay. So I'm going to be expecting more than that. Um, this is a final exam. It's not meant to, take you days and days and weeks to finish. I realize you got other priorities and other responsibilities. So try not to think of this as something that needs to be 10 pages long. 3 to 4 pages, thoughtfully reworked, thoughtfully revised, um, should do it, should more than suffice. Reminding you once again, you may include outside sources, but you don't have to at all. All right. Um, the assignment submission page, I'm going to put it in a module called Finals Week, so be on the lookout for that, probably toward the bottom of our course content list. And I'm going to have it due on Thursday. My advice to you, strongly, strongly encourage you, get this turned in before then, is as much as you can help it. Again, I realize you got other stuff to do too, but the sooner you get this one in, the sooner we can work on whatever complications might come up and technical issues and all of that. Um, I've got to turn in final grades very soon. And the last thing we want to be doing is messing around trying to figure out what happened to our final exams. So um, Please get these in as soon as possible. Circle this as the absolute latest. And be in touch with me if you want to discuss any of this. Okay? And you're going to do great.